Welcome back to another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we, that's not what we're doing today, actually. What are we doing? Oh, yeah, buying a gaming PC. So now is a great time to be a PC gamer, of course, but the whole process can be intimidating for first-time buyers. So today, I'm going to give a general overview of the things I think are important to know when you're just starting out. Normal caveats apply for all this advice. I'm in no way a top-tier expert or anything, but I do have a lifetime of experience as a PC gamer. I certainly did start in the consoles, but it wasn't long before I had a PC running as well, and it wasn't long before I was playing more than lemmings. Getting into computer games is way easier now. In fact, it's easier than it's ever been, but that doesn't mean there aren't a lot of things you need to know. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 things to know before you buy a gaming PC. Starting off at number 10. First, know what you're actually going to use it for. Before doing anything, setting expectations and a budget for yourself is absolutely essential. It's not the most exciting thing to know, believe me, but having a general understanding of just how much you're going to spend is really important, and I can't stress this enough. Gaming PCs there are purchases that can vary wildly in price. So keep in mind, a top-of-the-line machine can be obscene in its price, super expensive. I'm talking $4,000 or $5,000 if you really want to splurge. But for most users, that's just totally unnecessary. Generally, you can get a good desktop PC for around $2,000, and it'll do almost everything you need it to, while a top-of-the-line PC that can do 4K 60 plus FPS is going to cost $3,000 to $4,000. It's not a cheap hobby to get into, so plan accordingly and spare yourself some sticker shock. As much as online videos try to sell you on the wow factor of 4K gaming, it's not particularly necessary for most players, especially if you don't have a 4K display. Generally, aiming for 2K, 60, 120 FPS, that's more than enough for your average gamer. It's more than enough for me. Could I push 4K? Yes. Do I? No. I would much rather get double the FPS, which is about, not quite exactly, but it's a 50% drop in resolution, and that just, it moves much smoother. I can push 4K. I didn't say I can push it at 60 FPS all the time, especially with every game. There's still stuff that brings my machine to its knees, and halving that resolution really helps. Like, just ask yourself, are you really going to be using this thing to play every cutting-edge game that comes out on extreme max settings? Or are you going to play Vampire Survivors and Noida and stuff like that? Because I'm playing a lot of Noida lately. All that physics, having a nice machine does help with, but Noida is still not like the most taxing thing you're ever going to play on one of these things. The only real issue is that PCs can only get so cheap. And in terms of price, you're not going to get a PC comparable to a PS5 at the same price. Consoles are just going to be cheaper. They have the same components in every one of them. They're mass-produced. It's just cheaper. If you want remotely decent PC gaming, it's going to be around $1,000. And that's the starting point. I'm not trying to discourage anyone from buying PCs because they generally are the best way to go if you're serious about gaming, but they are an investment, and I don't want you to think going for a $700 PC is going to get you even comparable performance to like spending $500 on a PS5. It's just, it's not. We want to set expectations so we don't get anybody spending money and getting disappointed and getting mad at us. Or just, let's say they don't get mad at us and they're just not happy, not having a good time gaming. We don't want that. And number 9 is building a PC. Ask most people what you should do to buy a gaming PC. Most people are going to tell you to build one. There's a lot of reasons your first PC should be a build. It teaches you how PCs are constructed, the essential parts of them, and more importantly, it is cheaper. Like, a lot cheaper. Like back when the supply chain was being disrupted and crypto mining was a big money-making scheme, it was a little cheaper to get a pre-built because graphics card prices were getting crazy. But now it's going to save you money. It's the labor, now that there's no shortage of stuff. And this is one of the most intimidating parts of getting into PC gaming. I won't mince words here. There's a lot you need to know. A PC has many parts, and I have heard more than my fair share of horror stories of people trying to build a PC and running into massive issues. Knowing simple information like how big a case you should get, what kind of power supply you need, and what capacity it should have, how fans are needing to be oriented. A good tutorial will cover all that and more. I've built a lot of PCs in my lifetime, and they've been purpose-built. That goes from building gaming PCs to building mining PCs to building very cheap PCs that I don't want anything to do with because an elderly person is going to use them. But I will tell you this, there are still a few scary bits, but building a PC now, it's easier than ever. And yes, putting down some thermal paste for the first time, it can be tense. But if you watch someone else do it, it takes a lot of the fear out of the whole process. So look it up. And as somebody who's built a lot of PCs, I want to tell you from personal experience, the one thing you absolutely do not want to do is try to build a PC without knowing exactly what you're doing first. It's not hard, but trying to troubleshoot on the way, that's a freaking nightmare. Sometimes there really are just faulty parts, but trying to separate actual failure from user error is often a painful experience, so watch a tutorial before buying anything. And then watch it again before building it. It sounds tedious. In fact, it doesn't just sound tedious, it is tedious. But it is a fraction of the tedium you will experience if you do it wrong and have to figure out how you did it wrong. So make building your first gaming PC a positive experience. Believe me, if you didn't plan properly, it can easily become the opposite. At number 8, you got to avoid the compatibility issues. There's a lot of different parts to consider when buying a PC. How everything interacts can be very confusing when you're starting out. I mean, there's just so many parts to consider. How are you supposed to know what's good and what isn't? So it's not a bad idea to just directly copy a YouTuber's build if you're not feeling confident. But there's also like an absolutely essential resource called PCPartPicker.com. It's a website that makes selecting parts for a new PC like significantly easier. You get a simple drop-down list of everything you need, and it'll automatically tell you if there's any possible issues or incompatibilities with hardware you choose. I wouldn't necessarily use this website to fully buy a PC because you might be able to find better prices elsewhere, but it is far and away one of the most useful tools out there for building one. Even if you're just following someone else's guide to the letter, use this website. Make sure absolutely everything is compatible. Things can change quick in the world of PCs, and it can be super easy to mistakenly put the wrong component in your shopping cart and buy something that you can't use if you're not savvy to what everything in a product's description actually means. You do not want to buy an expensive graphics card only to find that it does not fit in your PC case, or you bought a motherboard that only has 2 RAM slots, or you get a power supply that doesn't have the watts you need, cables are too short. I mean, there's tons of things that can go wrong when buying the parts to build a PC, and this website will catch most of them. At number 7, if you're buying pre-built, then there are a few things to know. Listen, as much as pre-built is a dirty word in the PC gaming community, you could do whatever you want. It's your money, and frankly, it's way less of a hassle. Is it way less money? Absolutely not, but hassle, it's not there. You may even just want a gaming laptop for that matter. There's some pretty good ones in that area. It's not like that's a bad thing, but there are some important things to know if you want to go down this route. For one, it's going to be more expensive, like I said. I can't emphasize that enough either. You're paying for the privilege of somebody else building your computer for you, and depending on the manufacturer, those prices are going to be high. There's a lot of pre-builders out there, and some are going to be better than others. Certain brands to avoid are Cybertron, Alienware, anything from Dell, HP, MSI, Acer. Basically what you can get at Best Buy, because that's going to be overpriced and underpowered. That's the common issue with pre-builts. Even if they do give you a decent GPU, they're going to cheap out some other areas like power supply, and they tend to be kind of lazy with the thermals, so they tend to get hot. There are better pre-built makers out there. Just look up what people recommend and make sure it's recent, because options can change super rapidly. Oh, and one more thing, if you decide to go this direction, make sure you know what the warranty covers. And if there's any noticeable problems with the PC, return it. Don't put it off. Don't let customer service try to convince you to send it in for repairs. Return it. Get a full refund. Like a lot of these manufacturers can and will drag their feet as much as possible to avoid giving a refund. Like they'll quote-unquote repair your computer for weeks. They'll waste your time with circular phone calls and terrible customer service. And if they do screw things up, which they often do, might I add, because their repair centers are barely functional e-waste dumping grounds, they'll make extracting a refund out of them very much like pulling teeth. Save yourself the pain. Don't get stuck with a $2,000 brick. Just be ready to refund at any and all signs of problems. You're buying one of these things because they're supposed to work right out of the box. The whole point is that you're avoiding dealing with troubleshooting. So don't deal with troubleshooting. Just get a refund if it doesn't work in any way. At number 6, think into the future. Being future-minded is an incredibly good idea while building a PC because, well, just to be frank, where gaming on a console pretty much is stationary. You buy a console and it's like that forever for the most part. When you buy a PC, it doesn't have to stay like that. It could be upgraded. So make plans, folks, all right? I would recommend, especially if you're not buying literally the top of the line now, think about what you can replace in the short term and long term and put the money in the stuff that is going to last. But a quick note, when you are putting stuff into the computer, don't just throw the boxes out, save them. Because I'll tell you this right now, it's way easier to sell them on eBay or Craigslist or whatever when you have the original box. And yeah, you buy a $600 graphics card now, it's going to be worth less than $100 in 5 years, maybe, I don't know. But hey, that $80 can buy you a game, right? It's not like this is all cheap stuff to do. And number 5 is know your operating system. When it comes to PC gaming, there's really only 3 main operating systems to choose from: Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. They all have their own positives and negatives, but in general, if you're getting into audio and video editing seriously, a lot of people will tell you Mac OS is what you want. I don't entirely agree with that, but I'm not going to make that a big thing here. If you're a developer, you probably want Linux, and if your main goal is to game, then Windows is where you're going to go. And I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. Microsoft kind of has a stranglehold on desktop interface software, and they aren't going anywhere anytime soon. We all complain about Windows. Everybody hates at least aspects of it, but if you want to get into gaming, that's what you got. I mean, not entirely, not anymore. Steam Deck uses SteamOS, which is Linux-based, and that alone has created a drive for developers to improve game compatibility with Linux by a lot. You can safely game pretty well on Linux nowadays, but it's not really the operating system for the beginning user or somebody who just doesn't want to, do a bunch of extra crap in order to game. Windows is pretty easy to use and you can play anything. It's got a lot of problems, got a lot of annoying things. You got to fiddle with stuff. You got to turn off a bunch of stuff when you set it up for the first time, uninstall a bunch of bloatware, but it's standard, so finding help with all that stuff isn't hard. If using Windows is just unacceptable, you can emulate Windows on Linux. That's a popular way to play certain games that are normally incompatible, but the required tech knowledge to do that is a little bit above the average user. Also, Mac OS is a closed environment. There's not much you can do there, and most games aren't compatible with it, so if you're building a PC, you can't use it anyway. So if you're into gaming, Mac OS might as well not exist. Yes, there are ways to have Windows stuff run on Mac. I'm not getting into it. It's a lot. Let's just say this again, Mac OS might as well not exist in the gaming realm. But at least Windows is cheap, right? It is that, if anything. At number 4 is AMD versus NVIDIA. Deciding your GPU will be probably the most important choice you make while building a PC. You got to decide how powerful it's going to be and who's making it. These days, the only real GPU makers left are AMD and NVIDIA, and honestly, it doesn't actually matter that much which one you get. If you're mostly playing modern games anyways, it doesn't matter. The difference in quality between the cards isn't that far off anymore, so the major differences are what you get with them, like upscaling. NVIDIA games use DLSS to upscale the games, while AMD has FSR, and this is where things get a little confusing because some games support FSR and others support DLSS. Some use both, some neither. It's kind of a free-for-all, but in my experience, more games tend to use DLSS, and when they do, the performance is better. So I want to say, on that point, I generally have gone with NVIDIA in the last couple of years. I've only swapped out a graphics card probably twice in the last 5 or 6 years, but that's kind of been what I've been looking at as I do it. The first one, it wasn't that big of a deal because DLSS wasn't as widely supported as the second one, which was much closer to now. But if you got to pick, I think DLSS is probably the better option, even if it's just because it's more implemented. But I would also say it's better in terms of quality, probably. I don't know. I may be imagining that, but it's definitely got a lot more compatibility. Everything else that makes these cards different is pretty minor. NVIDIA has better ray tracing. AMD gets you more frames generally for the price. Stuff like that. If you're playing mostly modern games, the difference is negligible. Just get whatever's cheaper based on what is acceptable for you. And yeah, doesn't make that big of a deal. It's not going to make a big difference to you, obviously. Obviously, the reasons I am maybe leaning towards NVIDIA on my stuff are kind of niche and kind of specific. I think you're fine with either generally, though. At number 3 is RAM and VRAM alongside your CPU, GPU, and SSD. The amount of RAM you have on your motherboard and the dedicated RAM you have on your GPU is pretty essential. When it comes to knowing how much you want, that's simple. Currently, you want to have at least 16 gigabytes of RAM and probably 32 just to give you a little extra overhead. Too little RAM can cause some serious bottlenecking. Brands shouldn't matter a lot. All that really matters is how much and how many slots you have on your motherboard. So I would generally not go for the bottom of the barrel in terms of price, but you don't have to go super high to get a decent experience. VRAM, a little bit different of a beast. That's video RAM strictly dedicated to your GPU, and it comes installed on the GPU. Along with the model number and manufacturer, you do need to know how much VRAM a GPU comes with. If it's only something like 8 gigabytes, that's not going to be enough. 12 is probably your standard at this point if you want to crank up the settings. But if you want a real beast of a GPU, 16 gigabytes is where you're looking at. There's a lot more to talk here, but one of the best things about RAM these days, it's super easy to install, swap out. It's very hassle-free. It's not something you should be scared about if you're building your own PC. At number 2, here is a big one for you. Update your drivers. One of those annoying but necessary parts of PC gaming is this. It's getting everything updated. Sometimes you hate it. Like anytime Windows decides to automatically update and break something out of nowhere, or you have fought with that multiple times in the past and you shut off automatic updates and it just bogs down your system as it keeps trying to make you update and you eventually give in. That's all awful. But if you want to keep up with new games, you really got to keep your card updated because these updates can and often do improve a game's performance. Oftentimes, they have things to do with bug fixes. I mean, it's significant. There can be major differences between updates on a graphics card's drivers. So it's not just game updates. When you're on PC, you got to keep up with the GPU software updates. Now, do you need to stop, download, and install every single one of them every time they pop up? No, but if you buy a new game, it's probably a good idea to check for GPU updates before turning it on. It can preemptively solve a lot of problems for you. I'm looking at you, Alan Wake 2. I'll also say it's rare, but it can actually cause more problems as well. NVIDIA in particular has an infrequent but not good habit about putting out updates that tank performance rather than improve them. In situations like these, knowing how to roll back drivers also quite handy. How you actually do it changes depending on your operating system and graphics card, but it's not usually particularly difficult to do, but very annoying. In fact, everything that has anything to do with drivers is very annoying. And finally, at number 1, there is a performance bug that you will have. I don't know what exactly. It will drive you absolutely nuts, so try to let go of it. Like, you got a brand spanking new PC, you downloaded the newest, most cutting-edge game to test it out. Everything seems good, but then you notice that stutter. The frame rate isn't quite hitting a consistent 60. The HDR not quite as vibrant as you expected. The fans are blasting air. So you go into settings and tinker with things, and then you turn the game on, play it for a few minutes, go back to the settings, and you keep doing it. And then it stops happening in just that game and starts happening in all the games. You're barely even playing the games anymore. All you do is turning them on, running benchmarks, and doing endless testing and wasting a bunch of time, turning it off because you're tired or something. And that's what happens. That's your gaming experience. It's easy to get obsessive over all of this stuff. I promise you, it is super easy. Spending all your time trying to squeeze out every drop of performance out of your new system, I get it, but at a certain point, you're just driving yourself nuts. And is it for a reason? No. In all seriousness, sometimes that little stutter, it goes away after you play the game a bunch and it's gotten all of its annoying compiling of shaders out of the way or whatever. And sometimes they won't go away. Sometimes PC games just don't run well. They're buggy and poorly optimized. Maybe there's a stuttering issue the developers just never bothered to fix, or a memory leak that slowly erodes performance as you play the game. It doesn't matter that you have a cutting-edge PC. If the game's programming isn't up to snuff, it's gonna stutter and get real choppy no matter what you try. It can be hard to recognize when poor performance is a software or hardware issue, even as a seasoned PC gamer. But after a while, you'll recognize the patterns. Like if it's an Unreal Engine 5, a game that doesn't preload shaders at the start, it's gonna stutter. You can't fix that. It's gonna be there. You gotta accept it. No matter how much tweaking you do, some games just aren't gonna run that well. Sometimes they'll run better and look better on consoles that are way weaker than your PC. And it's not just your system melting. It's just not something you can set. You can't fix it. Just a bad PC port. There's been enough of that in the last decade. We could probably have a history class on it. It would probably not be the most useful information you could attain, but still, like, just accept that every game is not going to work perfectly and don't sweat the small stuff. With PC gaming, there's an infinite amount of small things to freak out about, and you can either drive yourself crazy trying to fix them, or you can just relax and not worry about it. So what if the game is dipping down from 120 to 90 frames per second during loading zones? That is way better than the console version, I promise you, for the most part. Just let it go. You'll be way happier. And that's all for today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.